If we want a beloved community, we must stand for justice. There is nothing more powerful than a true, beloved community of resistance, hope, and love.
One of the most vital ways we sustain ourselves is by building communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone. Dominator culture has tried to keep us all afraid, to make us choose safety instead of risk, sameness instead of diversity. Moving through that fear, finding out what connects us, reveling in our differences. This is the process that brings us closer, that gives us a world of shared values, of meaningful community. If we want a beloved community, we must stand for justice.
I believe that most of us realize that we live in a society where rampant individualism is held up as one of our values, which seems to go counter to the theme of community, of resistance today. We can think of countless times we've heard phrases like, every man for himself, or pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and cowboy theology, as I like to refer to that, or take responsibility for your own health. Now, if someone is fortunate enough to do well financially, our society wants to give them sole credit without any regard for the countless people who helped them along the way. If someone struggles with difficult health, our society tells them, well, just make better choices, without any acknowledgement that 60% of one's health is determined by their zip code, and how the cost of health care greatly impacts people who are not as fortunate financially as others. No person is an island. Now, on this weekend especially, when we remember the prophetic life work of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement, we cannot forget that Reverend Dr. King continually emphasized the importance of community in bringing about social change and transformation. Now, our wisdom readings this morning are selected words from Bell Hooks, an author, poet, theorist, educator, and social critic. She spent so much of her work focusing on how the intersections of race, capitalism, and gender produce and support systems of oppression. We think about what's going on in our world in recent weeks and months. Hooks' prophetic words certainly ring true. Here again, this one statement from her. If we want a beloved community, we must stand for justice. Now, as we continue to focus on practicing resistance during this month, community is an essential, integral part of this work. It is not done in isolation. Now, while all of us might, and I believe do, practice individual acts of resistance, the power of community cannot be overstated. Think about a protest. One lone protester, that's important. That certainly has some kind of impact. But then think about when hundreds and thousands of protesters come together. It's so much harder to ignore what is taking place, the image and the community that is gathered there. It's like having one candle in a dark night. One candle certainly makes a difference, but a room full of lit candles illuminates a space beyond what we could ever imagine. Now, while there are numerous ways that we can build a community of resistance, I'd like this morning just to offer 3 brief phrases to keep in mind while we continue to undertake this work. Firstly, See them as us. Secondly, stay active. Thirdly, celebrate good news. So first, we see them as us. I think probably all of us know how damaging a statement like those people can be in our world. If we are to have and to build a community of resistance, we need to operate with an us language that is inclusive and not divisive. Othering people in ways big or small automatically sets up a division. There are times when it's not easy to do this, to see us instead of them. Especially when we see people do or say horrific things. Now, one thing in the past 8 years that so many people have talked about is having close friends or family who have some very different viewpoints that we do, especially when it comes to political and justice issues. How are we still in community? And the core essential way to do this is to acknowledge and look for the humanity in others. Now, even when we're not certain how to do that or how that's possible, to look for that divine light that is within every single person. Now, looking for that divine light in another without excusing words or actions. It doesn't mean there's no consequences for words or action. Looking for that divine light, that says so much more about who we are and who we hope to be than it does the other person. Now, there are always going to be times when we will never find a path of connection with another person. Sometimes the barrier is just too great. But that doesn't mean that we don't attempt to do so. So first, we see them as us. Secondly, we stay active. Now, one of the things I love about our congregation is the social justice work that we do, both communally and individually. I've heard so many of you share in recent months about despair, anger, hopelessness, and how when you joined with others in taking action, it transformed what you were feeling. So many of you have told me about just going to a protest and being with others, even people you didn't know, how that gave you some hope that you weren't feeling before. Now, being active also includes, as we're active in resistance, things like writing on a prayer card, lighting a candle, placing a stone in our shared water, and so many other rituals that we undertake. It is when we sit home by ourselves in despair or fear and take no action. That's when we lose hope and disconnect from a community of resistance. So we see others as us, we stay active, and lastly, we celebrate good news. Now, we all know there's far more than enough bad news to go around, and we are called to celebrate good news when it comes our way. Like Avelo Airlines discontinuing their contract with ICE, where they were flying people out of this country. Something that I know individuals in our church worked very hard for. Yes, we should clap. That's something to celebrate. We can't think, well, that's just one little thing. No, every little thing adds up. Just like every little stone that we place in the water adds up until it's an overwhelming amount of stones. We celebrate so many of the positive things, big or small, as we are in a community of resistance. There are so many wonderful things happening in our world, so many people working as a community of resistance and showing love to others. Now, last week, as we talked about joy as resistance, celebration goes hand in hand with joy. I think one of the wonderful things that we can celebrate that helps create community is just in recent days, the Buddhist monks who were on their walk of peace came through our area. And I've talked with so many of you who were there standing along as they made their journey. And what a powerful spiritual experience that was for you. Now, yesterday, as I talked to some of our members who gathered along the streets in Salisbury, and as they were waiting for the monks to come and they could see them in the distance, they were talking with other people there standing beside them, building community. Some people who had driven from far away, people they would never see again, most likely, did not know. They were building a community of hope, a community of resistance, a community of love. There is nothing more powerful than a true, beloved community of resistance, hope, and love. Now, I'd like to leave you with these words from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Love is creative and redemptive. Love builds up and unites. Hate tears down and destroys. The aftermath of the fight with fire method is bitterness and chaos. And the aftermath of the love method is reconciliation and creation of the beloved community. Yes, love, which means understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill, even for one's enemies. Love is the solution. Today, and every day, we keep love at the center. As we include others and think of the power of we and not them, as we stay active in justice work, and as we celebrate good news. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.